Good morning and welcome to Kelly's Anesthesia Tips. Today I am timely going to share some of the information from our recent meeting in St. Louis. If you were not fortunate enough to attend, it was a fantastic meeting. I did come back with a little bit of a cold or something, but that's what happens when you travel, I suppose. So forgive the sore throat. Here I wanted to do it timely though, because this afternoon at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, the ASA is offering something that is a more cost-effective 1-hour session for anesthesia. So if you're new to anesthesia, that's a session you won't want to miss, whether you're a member or not a member. It's a very reasonable one. So the first thing I'm going to do is pop over and show you where that is. On my website, I'll link all of these in the comments. I try to keep an ongoing list of this for multiple reasons because it's so important to support these meetings. We need them. And that there are different options. So there are webinars if you can't travel. There are reasonable webinars. There are YouTubes, but you know, YouTubes don't give you that back and forth or the ability to ask the questions really. So here we have the ASA webinar today at 1 o'clock. If you're a member, there's a discount. I think I'm trying to get ahead of myself because I try to keep these short and I've got so much information to share. All right, so this is today, as I said. So if you're going to do it, today is the day. Member price $60, non-member price $75. You register through here. Doris and I, who did the boot camp for the St. Louis meeting, are going to be speaking at this meeting. So as I said, I will put that one on there. And then there's another virtual one coming up. So if you couldn't fit in today, there's another one on anesthesia, pain, and on orthopedics by Decision Health. So here are the links for that as well. And then start saving the dates for next year. I did not put a save the date on here yet, but I did put one on the seminars tab, I believe. One is seminars, one is speaking for next year for AIABPM. All right, so I'm going to share with you some information from that meeting, starting with the boot camp. Just quickly, because this is usually a very inexpensive add-on. This year it was $100 extra on top of the ticket, but you get 4 hours, so that's like $25 a CEU. Not only that, we never give the same boot camp twice. We do go over a lot of the information that is necessary for anesthesia billing, but it's based on our own experience, what we have seen, and we know we're speaking to people who have been in, anesthesia coding for either a very short time. We've had people come to the meetings that are just starting or they haven't started yet. And then we have those in the audience like, Kim Flahart, Pam Stofers that have been doing this for 35, 40 years. So we realize that, we've got a whole bank of people that we're working with. And then we have also other people who chime in and give valuable information on that. So I'm going to do this as quickly as I can, but still kind of convey the information that I want to share. So that was the Sunday. It was a great day. And we threw on this year 2 social activities. One, golfing if you're a golfer. And then 2, a bus full of us went over to the museum, of the Blues Museum in St. Louis. The city of St. Louis was so kind. They made us these beautiful baskets with drinks and candies and all sorts of things that come from St. Louis. We also had a lot of people getting together on the social program to hit the ball games for the St. Louis Cardinals. So it really was a fantastic meeting. All right, so Monday. And I'm going to go through every one of these, but I'm going to try to just touch on some because Amy Sestrick, she's the Assistant United States Attorney right there in St. Louis area. And she was fantastic. Such a great session to start our meeting out. Those of you who have been before, Vicki did is there a case on that? Those are always interesting because she brings the current cases. And I may have some to share with you because I'm going to use some of the slides from just to give you some tidbits of things, but I cannot share the whole meeting. It was 3 days of wonderfulness. All right. Then Dina did navigating anesthesia challenges with Dr. Jack Neal, who is always so much fun to listen to. He's a brainiac. He probably knows that. And then surprisingly, I enjoyed the heck out of this session too with Dr. Chris Steele. And you think something doesn't pertain to you really preoperative to perioperative, but really it does. There are so many things. And as I said, I'm not going to go through each and every one, but boy, were these fantastic. One of my favorites here is working with Dr. Pam. All right, so in a nutshell, I'm going to pop over first to the No Surprises Act, because on the agenda, let me find where that was, we had a panel of fantastic people, but unfortunately I had to miss this. All I got to do was look over the slides, because you may or may not know, but this year we were trying to save the meeting from extinction, so I ended up working the desk during this one so other people could go. I keep my eye on this like a loose eye, because it doesn't really pertain to me as an auditor except trying to help people. But I understand this was such a great session. So if you're looking for information, there's the people here you can kind of reach out or talk to if you're having any issues with that. But apparently I did a little bit of the reading on my own. The Federal Hearings and Appeals Services, HALO, both of them are successfully helping practices through this process. Gary works with the billing company, Coronas. You may know that was a consolidation of MedAct, ABC, and one other I can't remember. And then we had an actual person who was in the trenches with Providence Anesthesiology Associates, and Lisa Farmer moderated, and she is also with, she's with Team Health, and it doesn't say this on there, but loads of experience between all of them. So if you're having trouble there, and I'm sharing this link with you as well, because the ASA just published something on September 13th that is related to a lawsuit from hospital-based physicians regarding the No Surprises Act. So they were successful in having that Texas decision upheld. The issue still continues to be that once you win the process, the insurances are very slow in paying you. So I'll give these links as well. What else did I want to share? I've got the No Surprises Act. I'm going to pop over and do a few slides with you guys. And that is starting with 35. These are mine, so I can share. So I did with the boot camp, just some tidbits to help you with your diagnosis coding. Because if you are putting a diagnosis pointer of 1 here and then listing 12 codes up here, someone's having you report 12 diagnosis codes, or 10987665, you know what I'm saying, just a lot of codes, you're wasting your time. Because if there's a 1 here, they're only looking at the number 1. So check to see if you're doing that. Then I had some don'ts for diagnosis coding. Don't overcode, the example I just gave. These are problems that I run across when I look at claims for review. So don't report venous insufficiency for an art line placement. It's typically the same reason as the reason for the surgery. For example, a cabbage. They know they're going to need that extra monitoring, or a trauma for a patient who is in an accident. So when they need those types of additional monitoring during anesthesia, you don't have to go try to create a code to match the art line. Here, don't report what isn't needed, and I see this too. So patients having a hernia diagnosis or GERD diagnosis or something for an eye procedure. I can understand if you're trying to justify a physical status modifier 3 or 4, which is not typically what you'll see with those eye procedures. They'll do those in hospitals. But if that's what you're trying to do, pick those ones that mean something, not the hernia, or the GERD. Pick the heart conditions or something along that line, something that is supporting that physical status. The big one is never report cancer unless you have a path report or a definitive diagnosis, because you can cause patients to not be able to get insurance or to pay more for their premiums because you've inadvertently coded pardon me, something they don't have. You don't want to do that. Ran across this lately, so I wanted to share. 41 years, and I still see things that make me go, this was one. So on the pre-anesthesia assessment, if it says the patient has 1 or 2 drinks a week, or one drink a day, a glass of wine or whatever, you can't assume that that patient is an alcoholic based on that questionnaire. You only can code the patient as an alcoholic if the patient's been diagnosed as one. So be careful there. Then I have the do's. So make sure your diagnosis is findable by whoever's looking at the record, and then check the post-operative if you have it available. If it's not available, do pre-op, and then you'll have to deal with potential denials. And then communicate with your clinical staff on whatever errors you're finding and try to get them fixed. And you may have to do this over and over again, but that's okay. That's what compliance is. You're fixing things over and over again. All right, so my next one says, let's go to page 249. So 249, this was from Vicki Mykoviak's. Is there a case on that? And I chose to share this one because someone just asked on the Anesthesia Coding and Billing Facebook about whether the anesthesiologist had to actually conduct and write out the pre-anesthesia and post-anesthesia. So there are those medical direction criteria that we all know are in the chapter 12, section 50 for the anesthesia area. I've shared that resource over and over again. On that one, it does not state that the anesthesiologist has to write all that information down themselves, but they definitely have to perform their own pre-anesthesia exam and evaluation. Someone else can gather, it's called scribing, the information, the pre-anesthesia, but the anesthesiologist is responsible for that pre and post-anesthesia care because it is part of the medical direction requirements. Now you'll notice that this was a college that figured out what they were doing on their own. They were like, oops, we're doing something not right. So when you see self-disclosure like this, they had a staff member report to the compliance hotline. The compliance hotline followed their protocol for self-disclosing, which typically does involve an attorney, and then they had to pay some money back, but they definitely didn't have to pay $23,000 or $26,000 per claim item, line item, whatever it is. It's just much better when you find the problems and take them to, and then they'll do some education to make sure that they fix this issue. All right, my next one says I'm going to 369. So 369, this was the one I did with Dr. Pam. I absolutely love this session because it does kind of back up what I'm saying about making sure you're in touch with your clinical staff. Because sometimes they say things you don't understand. I'll use an example, a very recent example of one of my anesthesia friends, I'll say, that the doctor told her that a saphenous nerve block was the same as an adductor canal. Well, we scratch our heads sometimes when we hear that because Dr. Pam and I had the discussion years ago about the difference between when a doctor says popliteal, and she's like, well, they probably mean sciatic, but if it's an ankle block, that saphenous nerve does run down. So you hear things and then you correlate them with something. So when you don't understand, you do have to ask. So if it's an adductor canal block, just ask them, can you document it as an adductor canal? If it's saphenous, is it ankle? Is it adductor? You need those targeted nerves to get to the right codes, if there is a code. If there's not a code, then we're going to go to Amy Turner shared what's coming up with blocks on 862. We don't have codes yet, but these are the type that are still unlisted for 2024. In 2025, we'll have something, but take note that ultrasound guidance is going to be bundled in with these new blocks. So while you're filing them now, the facial plane box as unlisted, and you get to report the ultrasound guidance, by next year, you're not going to be able to report it separately. That does not mean you don't still need that documentation to support that it was done, because that's more for patient care and risk management purposes. Okay, let's see if I'm forgetting anything. Oh, I do have another one. We were so lucky. Two more things I want to share. Told you there was a lot. I am jamming 3.5 days of information into just a small amount of time as I can. So Ellen Barra, who works for WPS, was so kind to accept our invitation to come speak at this meeting. And she was such a good speaker. She spoke anesthesia. If there was something that was maybe a misunderstanding, we had some QSGHG9 issues, she's going to check into it, come back and follow up on it. I mean, she reached out to all the other Medicare administrative contractors that weren't able to come or declined coming, and made sure that she had local coverage determinations from each different place. So thank you, Ellen Barra. Thank you, all of our speakers. You did a fantastic job. And then I don't remember which slide this is on, but we discussed it throughout the meeting. If you are getting denials from your insurance companies for surgeons' orders for postoperative pain blocks, you're not by yourself. You're going to have to really work on that. And if you want to hop over to my website, let me go back over to there and I will show you. I wrote an article like 10 years ago. It's been a long time ago. Let's go to my articles page. More articles. And I remember it was called Joint Efforts. So let's just go find joint. There we go. So September of 2013, 11 years ago. Back then, when they made those changes to the correct coding initiative, those of us who keep our eyes on things like this went, there's a reason why they made these changes. And the reason is they want the surgeon's orders documented. So if you're not getting them, you really need to work with your surgeon's offices. There's a place in the record for surgeon's orders. We are finding practices that are getting them. But those of us that are in the industry are saying, start working on getting these now, because if you don't, then the insurance company may say, you know, according to the National Correct Coding Initiative, you can hyperlink off of all of this. You have to have the surgeon's orders, and they're right. That's what's in there. The last one that I want to talk about is central lines. We are seeing denials because the documentation for the central line does not indicate where the tip terminates. Now what we're learning is that they typically will do like a image to make sure that it's in the right place, whether it's ultrasound or x-ray or whatever it is. But the anesthesia providers are not used to this, but they're going to have to start documenting that as well. All right, you guys, did I hit? I keep finding more. I made another note. Internal audits. It is so important for you guys to do these internal audits for yourself. Let me go see if I can find where we talked about it, because we talked about it a lot. Internal audits are something that you can do that don't cost. That's not where it was, but it's somewhere in here. It's something you can do. We talked about it on the panels. I have tools on my website that I offer to people to try to do your own internals. Let's just go there because it's mine and I don't have to ask about sharing. But if you go to forms to download, so more forms to download and then documents to download, I have audit templates. I have a big spreadsheet you can do. You can take out columns, add columns, whatever it is you want to do to check whatever it is you're checking. Codes, times, documentation. You can pinpoint it or you can do a 360. It's your choice. And then I have some really, really simple ones where I just basically sat down with pre-submission anesthesia records and I said, okay, these are pre-submissions. What am I finding? And then we fixed them before they ever got filed. And I will share also that I recently did a review for a very compliant practice in an unknown state. I know what state it is, but they have their own internal auditing process, and man, were they catching errors left and right. Over 50% of the endoscopy codes were coded wrong because of all the confusion about colonoscopies. They fixed them. They fix them. That's what internal audits do. Gives you the ability to correct things before they become a problem. All right, you know me, I hope. Unless this is your first video, then go back and watch some of the others. But I always end with this. Be kind to one another, generous with your knowledge, continue to support anesthesia meetings. We are going to start planning that next one soon, and we hope to see you there. Vendors, attendees, whoever wants to come. All right, guys, till next time. And don't forget, today, there's another one at 1 o'clock.